welcome back to my lovely IHP community and the 5D Collective, to all of those who are internally securely attached or getting there. And so together, the 5D Collective, true lovers, life partners, we laugh and love as well as build genuine relationships. Those are the different themes we're going to look into, and we get comfortable speaking our own truths with integrity and equanimity thanks to having a life of meaning and connection beyond the solo self. As Sadhguru shares, the spiritual process is not a divorce from life. It is an irrevocable love affair with life. And that's because with yoga and mindfulness, you do not become a Buddhist, no. You actively work your ventral vagal portfolio, or it's a ventral vagal portfolio of toning exercises. Thank you, Stephen Porges. And the mindfulness, Dr. Daniel Siegel, is capacity to use 3 pillars of the mind and choose to move towards integration. And I also integrate mindset and mindset. But mindset comes also from Dr. Daniel Siegel. So that's only when your body's a container that you like, oh, I got emotions, yay, I got an open heart, yay, and I get to share with someone, and more than just someone. Okay, great. Not afraid of it. I'm not going to get reactive. I'm going to be in my ventral vagal social engagement system. In fact, that's the beauty. You can get comfortable speaking your own truth with integrity and equanimity only if you have genuine relationships. That means that you and another human being are authentically speaking with open hearts, and your souls are seeing each other, or your whole selves, and none of you are hiding any of it. So you don't hide distorted part, no, and you don't use them either. I'm laughing because there are a lot of people they use. No, we're not Diego's family. We're a Pacha with a Cusco, Sid, Manny, okay? And Diego, but we are humans who say yes because we're smart enough to know that we're building, again, authentically, a genuine, lifelong relationship because we're mindfully, spiritually living and loving people. And we're being our true self because we've welcomed our true self. So we love ourselves unconditionally with our flaws, but we also have the integrity to know that we can have imperfections. We can fuck shit up. We can use words differently so we don't get anywhere near, oh, splinters and ruptures mean we're done forever. We, as we grow up, learn actually how amazing it is to be able to repair any type of relationship, really. And then you're going to consolidate the ones that you are safe consistently over time in your heart space and your mind space. And those are the ones that actively challenge you the most, because as you get older, we all know we have a history, but number one, no unhealed or ignored childhood trauma. Okay, so I'm talking to mindfully, spiritually living, loving people. Your spiritual awakening and your spiritual process, you actively access it when all your child parts are asleep, because you actively then access 2 sides of the brain, bilateral, vertical integration, and now you're able to be here as a whole self, not a paused self. The people who need therapy, they have a paused self. Let me pause for a minute to read to you, and then I'm going to use some of Patrick Tiahan's stuff. He has a great little tidbit today about what happens when childhood trauma bites you in the ass, and some great examples, okay? So, for the 5D Collective, we are true lovers and build genuine relationships because we're empowered feminines, empowered masculines. So we have a whole heart, and then we share open-heartedly our wholeness with others. And we're not asking them to actually give us a spot in their heart so that we can nestle in there, because our 0-1-year-old is ours. So our 0-1-year-old comes up, so does our 3-year-old, and that's when I can say to you, you know, my 3-year-old is really sad today and heartbroken and whatever it is, you know, and here's my 16-year-old. It depends how you're going to talk to people, but the point is you know how to talk and not be like, you have to let me be a whiner, you have to let me know. That those are all people who are just using words right now and on screen, allowing us to see how funny they are. So we, the 5D Collective, lead relationships with an inner child adult love language and a funny bone, thanks to, again, mindfully, spiritually living and loving as a whole, inner securely attached self with no fear or shame. So we know that people might ditch us. Doesn't mean we're not going to try. Okay? So there's no distorted feminine, masculine, or 3D, 4D collective with dysregulated and modulated embodiment who lead relationships in threat response, with fear and shame stemming from unhealed, ignored, and unresolved trauma, which leads them usually to be like Cusco for the first half of the movie and the squirrel, and they just keep doing that. Okay, so that we leave it alone. Again, healthy self-worth people know how to talk about boundaries, which is why any person, doesn't matter if they never get securely attached, like my facade friend, From their 0 to 1 year old, they will say secure connections, but we know we're just a warm body, a familiar face, and comfortable. Of course, we love each other, but my point is they don't heal their fear of abandonment, their fear of rejection, their fear of shame, all of that. So when we get to engage, we know we have a facade in front of us, which might switch it up on us, doesn't lose validity to, no, you're not an object, you're a person. As God taught me, you're my brothers and sisters. And then as Robert Sapolsky teaches me, you don't have free will. And then as dark matter and dark energy teach me I could die tomorrow, and therefore no asteroid don't hit me, I'm not going to make it into a big deal, because that would mean I have a grudge, and then that would mean I don't know what Jesus told me about forgiving, and that's, no, I got it. When you live a life of meaning and connection beyond the soul self as a person that comes with Holy Spirit, Jesus, God, and then you move into having also clairs, it doesn't really change that word soul. But I know some of you don't believe in a soul, so I'm just going to say I have a whole self. She's not broken. And whenever someone wants to get to know this whole self, well, not everybody is actually allowed in. When they are, they know who they are, and I know who they are, and there you go. And it's a fun time, because it's always about getting more and more comfortable with being Maria, with integrity and equanimity. They give me good ways to work on myself, and that's because, you're always going to have stuff to work on. I mean, come on, words, people. I use them erroneously all the time. So the 5D collective, we have no unhealed or ignored trauma, no dysregulated nervous system, in the threat response in the lead. Yeah, we don't want that at all. In fact, it's uncomfortable. We do not want or desire in any way, shape, or form non-bilaterally integrated brain. That's dumb. Like actively. I don't want just, no, I got shit coming up. So that is because we're comfortable with the shit that comes up. Remember, please, okay? And we're going to look at childhood trauma people for a minute after with Patrick Chihan, and he's great for anybody who needs to heal that, so that they can then say, yeah, I want mindfulness, mindsight, and mindset. Come on. And then you'll come on over for self-mindful living and loving, or self-help, personal development. It's really fun, and our spiritual retreats in the future. So sign on up and for the masterclass. And if you want one-to-one mentorship because you have some goals you're looking to achieve, you know how to find me. So again, the 5D collective, no inner child with adaptive child behaviors and maladaptive patterns of behaviors that are ignored, unhealed, or not accounted for when they arise. So they can arise all of a sudden because you got some shit going on, and that's because we all have our first 3 years of life with implicit memory. Takes that lifetime for your spiritual process and your spiritual self, or just you, to continue with your safe connections. Healthy self-worth safe connections are the people that you can have the imperfections and flaws with, Cusco and Pacha, and you get like, okay, let's get into this, okay? So you get into it's really fun. Again, it's really fun because it helps you to continue to live alive fully and with love and with what is something you will never be able to give a price to. A genuine relationship from the heart and soul is priceless because you're sharing who you are. This is not just who you are as a human. You're sharing the essence. You'll know it because then your inner self and the relational self that you're creating keeps building. You create your own little bubble because that's what me plus you, differentiation and differentiation, open-hearted, as Dr. Daniel Siegel would call it, I'm linking. I'm creating a mui because you and I have a dynamic when we're together, and then also that can happen in a herd. It's a relational field, but when we're talking one-to-one, it's our relational field, and we'll know it as we cultivate it by choosing because we want that. Independently from what stuff arises, that's the point. We're like, okay, and there's the fun. So tango, dance partners, it's always laugh. Or some don't know how to speak, but that's for those who are still in the midst of my lovely collective. I know who you are. I know it sounds funny. I'm not talking to all of y'all. I mean, I love all of y'all, but I'm talking to the people who tune in. The new moon, the full moon. I mean, every year, there's every so often that there's shit that people don't want to speak up on. And every so often I'm here saying, okay, whoever it resonates with, get on with the program. You got 24 hours or maybe 2 minutes. I don't know. I might have 1 second. Okay, I'm just saying. You don't have to live like that, but I technically live like that when I'm in other places because I got a Vesuvius over one place, a super volcano over there. I mean, really, we don't know if I'll make it to the next pizza or the full moon. The 5D collective, we take accountability seriously And that is thanks to owning our sense of self with awareness and regulation skills, we grow secure attachment, functional inner child, adult, healthy self worth, authentic relationships that last a lifetime. Our 5D state of consciousness, aka Christ consciousness, include mindful mystics and people who self regulate, take accountability, and are self aware with an open heart, mind, self, and we pursue consistent, healthy self worth, regulation, and soothing practices. Healthy. Okay, awesome. So the 5D collective bring forth healthy adult relationships that heal trauma for those who want it and genuine relationships. Not everybody wants it. Leave 4D, 3D alone. Healthy self regulation and soothing within our body thanks to mindfulness, mindset, and mindset practices and skills. We have an empowered feminine, our body, obviously in heart, but the body, and that's because we engage our social engagement nervous system and we're not afraid of feelings. There's no disconnected feelings that we need to connect, so we have a window of welcome to our emotional body and the depths of it. And therefore, we're also able to talk about feelings honestly and with an open heart with others in our relationships. We have healthy self regulation and soothing within our lovely little mind here with our thoughts as we use the inner growth mindset. Yeah, not inner critic or outer critic, none of that shame stuff. We don't do this either. We have an empowered, therefore masculine, because our lovely integration of the brain is pursued. We also pursue down regulating our default mode network and having a mind that works bilaterally, vertically, all over the place with integration. So, again, you are able to observe, witness, and process your own thoughts and emotions as they arise from the body to the mind, and you use a flow state that brings forth expansion of consciousness and the amazing intellectual and in-depth heart and soul conversations with those others that you're building the genuine relationships with, but also with just anyone. Because even if somebody's a facade, I'm not going to be a facade. And healthy self-regulation and soothing with our heart because of unconsciously loving our true self with flaws, imperfections, while maintaining integrity. Since we own, again, our sense of self and our soul of self. And so being yourself authentically is easy thanks to all the child and self parts or alters, because some people have alters that they're working with. And they're all being tended to, they're being brought to safety, and then asleep they go. And that's why, again, spiritual process awakening, that's with each other as whole selves. Kundalini awakening is something different. I've had it, and I won't talk about it in this episode. It's not anything that is going to destabilize you actively. There's a man who explains the difference between a Kundalini awakening and a psychosis, and he's really great at explaining it. 4D like to tell you that you're going to lose people, which is not true, but their 4D body type, definitely I could explain that too, which I won't. I'm going to conclude. As I'm saying, the higher self is what you lead with, and you bring forth your functional inner child adults to your relationships because you have a love language that has that funny bone thanks to the essence of the alive eternal child and adolescent essence that you have, essential spark, social engagement, true relationships. I'm going to be novelty because I'm loving intellectual, emotional conversations of all types with people who don't think like me at all. Okay, and that's because we protect the future. We want the future. We're people of different types, but we also have, again, creative expression. So, adolescent you is alive. 3-year-old you is alive. 1-year-old of you is alive. All your child parts alive. I'm a real boy. I'm a real girl. I'm a real day. Yay! And that's because you have restorative embodiment. Self-aware, accountable, regulating human being with an integrated brain and an internally securely attached whole self, and or they're getting there, and that's thanks to their healthy self-worth partners and relationships, because otherwise you ain't going to get your inner self out there. And you're not going to have a challenge when the disowned parts come up, because you're not going to have anybody to say, okay, you know what, I want to take ownership of my shitty behavior, or you know what, I'm noticing your shitty behavior. What's up with that? Let's talk. Functional adult here. It's not conditions. It's actually fun because we're not insecure people like, oh my God, you offended me. How dare you? Those are other people. We, again, internally securely attached mystics and people live and love mindfully, spiritually as our true whole self. So our 5D collective cultivates lifelong, truly loving, secure attachment relationships who love each other in the secure attachment, functional inner child adult way. You be you, mindful and flawed with integrity, and I be me. Mindful and flawed with integrity, and that's, again, healthy adult relationships, new stories that heal trauma for those who want it. And as Michael Jordan says, some people want it to happen, some wish it would happen, and others make it happen. Thanks, Michael Jordan. So we're going to have another episode, but before I let you go, the Patrick Tiahan tidbit, So he shares, you can find him at Patrick Tiahan Official if you go there on this day of the published recording. If you come here whenever another day, you can, check the calendar. Childhood trauma, he says, eventually catches up to everyone who went through it. It is up to the individual if they take their wounds seriously or not. And I will give you the gist of it and give you maybe some examples. But he says the individuals who have trauma, at some point or another, it'll come up. And when it comes up, that's when, you're the one who's going to take ownership or not. Waking up to patterns of dating abusive or unavailable people to the point of you not knowing intimacy otherwise, noticing that you assimilate others and don't know yourself, having a breakup so bad that you realize it is mental health issue, so abandonment, fear of abandonment, rejection, having children and realizing you don't know how to connect with them in the ways you would want to, realizing you have addictive behaviors that run your life, realizing that you have been living a lie about your sexuality, spiritual life, and work life. That's why we have spiritual ego, spiritual bypassers, mantles of mental health. We got a bunch of people who don't notice they're unhealed, ignored, and because their paused self follow fancy men and women in suit who allow them to stay in their threat response. But they won't. They actually don't take people like Patrick Tiahan and good therapists seriously, and they just shit on them, quote unquote. Losing people in your life due to bad behavior or due to behavior, which is where, yes, it's bad because of being not fun, like Cusco with Pacha, okay? But Pacha doesn't actually throw anybody away because that's the part of where when we are all imperfect and flawed, and in my case, God, Jesus, Holy Spirit taught me. And as a mystic, my oversoul, and also just as a whole self, I don't need to cut you out because I'm a healthy self-worth boundary person. Immunity isn't enough to be saluted, got treated with respect, while don't really talk about him as disrespectful, but I guess if I have to. That's why I like communicating comfortably with equanimity and integrity, because I don't feel bad for him. I just don't find it in any way, shape, or form anything. I got a story to tell y'all. I got plenty of stories, and actually it's really good because as a mindfulness practitioner and content creator, it helps me to say, here's what an empowered feminine can tell you. We're always a nurturer, and we'll do our best to be equanimous with integrity. And as long as you don't touch me physically, I don't need to be in my threat response. Realizing that a trigger is showing us that we have an earlier trauma that needs to be looked at. This is, again, Patrick Chan. So, and he says the moment they are pain and freak out, but they have an opportunity to change, there are just some things we can't outrun. And he goes on to say, from compassion, there are many people in our families who went through childhood trauma and eventually got bitten too. Maybe we have a sibling who is in their second abusive marriage, or we have a parent with children who don't speak to them, and so on and so forth. So again, if you want, you can go look it up. But the examples I gave are something that I've seen people ignore. So while he says, when these things happen, that's when you might begin to work on yourself with a therapist, there are others who, even if it's painful, they go around saying, you know what, I'm an avoidant, but the therapist said I'm doing a really good job, and they just tell me to do mindfulness and meditation, and I don't want to because, people are fucked up. And there's more than just that avoidant on YouTube. There's people that I've met, that I know, that continue to allow themselves to live out their trauma. So do the fancy man and woman in suit, and the people follow them. So again, we don't need to be pointing out to them anything, because as Robert Sapolsky points out, determine, no free will. As God pointed out to me, leave alone the ones who want to suffer, Maria. It's not your 0-1-year-old. And as I'm sharing with you, as a person who does know what self-help and personal development bring to person, because I do it all the time, it's amazing. I have the best of relationships. So when I look to the past, I'm like, thank you for helping me to continue to choose to be Maria, because that's awesome. I love to be Maria, and I love to be with people who love to be with me. That's what empowerment and getting comfortable speaking your truth with integrity and equanimity, that's with the people who can see you. And when that happens, it's a very special, special gift, because they see you here, and then they say, I want more. And they're not just saying it to warm a bed or to warm, some insecurity, because it's a whole self. So we'll get into that in a little bit. They say it because they really do care to build that relational self together and to create what Dr. Daniel Siegel calls a me, we. That's because, though, they have a bilaterally and vertically integrated brain, so they know self aware, accountable regulating skills and practices and how to bring their solo self to share empathy, compassion, emotional depth, and care for another. And want them to know, I don't want to hurt your feelings. That's not what I'm trying to build. I'm trying to build a safe haven, secure based relationship with you because I enjoy the selves that get to share life. Because that's what life is all about. It's about sharing heart and soul, or if you don't believe again in soul, a whole self and all your inner child parts asleep. That's the only way you're going to build a healthy self-worth relationship if you come in as a functional inner child adult. Your child parts don't leave you, which is why, I know some people find it silly to use it, but they actively don't leave you. As a person who now knows all the words, I'm like, yep, here's my 1-year-old, here's my 3-year-old, and I get to say, okay, 1-year-old of me. No, I don't do it that way, but it's okay. I can perceive the felt sense of self of my 0-1-year-old, my 3 to 7. Again, I can feel them. And so we'll be back again with more. Thanks for stopping by. Have a great day. If you don't stop by again, like, share, and subscribe. It'll help the channel grow. And if you know anybody else who's into self-help, personal development for mindfully living and loving people, spiritually living and loving people who are okay with having a 5D mystic, empowered feminine. Because, I'm going to also read some channeled guidance messages, perhaps, because we have some beautiful cards and themes in the air as we close on out in a little bit. Our lovely 2024. It's been a great year. I know it'll be even more amazing. So we'll be back in a little bit.